It had been an integral part of our lives. For as far back as we could remember, we'd been born into an ugly world, and the Oasis was our one happy refuge. The thought of the simulation being privatized and IOI, or privatized by IOI, horrified us in a way that those born before its introduction found difficult to understand. For us, it was like someone threatening to take away the sun or charge a fee to look up at the sky. The Sixers gave Gunters a common enemy, and Sixer bashing was a favorite pastime in our forums and our chat rooms. A lot of high-level Gunters had a strict policy of killing or trying to kill every Sixer who crossed their path. Several websites were devoted to tracking Sixer activities and movements, and some Gunters spent more time hunting the Sixers than they did searching for the egg. The bigger clans actually held a yearly competition called 86 the Sexors, which, if you don't know what 86 means, I was ashamed of you. With a prize for the clan who managed to kill the largest number of them. After checking a few other game Gunter forums, I tapped my bookmark icon for one of my favorite websites, Artie's Missives, the blog of a female Gunter named Artemis, pronounced Artemis, because it's ART3MIS. I discovered it about 3 years ago and had been a loyal reader ever since. She posted these great rambling essays about her search for Halliday's eggs, which she called Maddening MacGuffin Hunt. She wrote with an enduring, intelligent voice, and her entries were filled with self-deprecating humor and witty, sardonic asides. In addition to posting her often hysterical interpretations of passages in the almanac, she also linked to the books, movies, and TV shows and music she was currently studying as part of her Halliday research. I assumed that all these posts were filled with misdirection and misinformation, but they were still very highly entertaining. It probably goes without saying that I had a massive cyber crush on Artemis. Of course you did. Of course you did. We can't have a romance. This book didn't even need a romance. Just didn't need it. Anyways. Where was I? Okay. She occasionally posted screenshots of her raven-haired avatar, and I sometimes always saved them to a folder on my hard drive. Her avatar had a pretty face, but it wasn't unnaturally perfect. In the Oasis, you got used to seeing freakishly beautiful faces on everyone, but Artemis features didn't look as though they'd been selected from a beauty drop-down menu on some avatar creation template. Her face had the distinctive look of a real person's, as if her true feature had been scanned into the mapping or mapped onto her avatar. Big hazel eyes, rounded cheekbones, a pointy chin, and a perpetual smirk. I found her unbearably attractive. Artemis's body was also somewhat unusual. In the Oasis, you usually saw one of two body shapes. Female avatars, the absurdly thin yet wildly popular supermodel frame, or the top-heavy, wasp-waisted porn starlet physique, which looked even less natural in the Oasis than it did in the real world. But Artemis's frame was short, Rubenesque, all curves. I knew the crush I had on Artemis was both silly and ill-advised. What did I really know about her? She'd never reveal her true identity, of course, or her age or her location in the real world. There was no telling what she really looked like. She could be 15 or 50. A lot of Gunters even questioned whether she was really female. But I wasn't one of them. Probably because I couldn't hear the idea that the girl with whom I was virtually smitten with might actually be some middle-aged dude named Chuck, with black hair and male pattern baldness. In the years since I first started reading Artie's missives, it had become one of the most popular blogs on the internet, now logging several million hits a day, and Artemis was now something of a celebrity, at least in Gunter circles. But fame hadn't gotten to her head. Her writing was still as funny and self-deprecating as ever. Her newest blog post was titled The John Hughes Blues, and it was an in-depth treatise on her 6 favorite John Hughes teen movies, which she divided into 2 separate trilogies: The Dorky Girl Fantasies, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, and Some Kind of Wonderful, and The Dorky Boy Fantasies, The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Just as I finished reading it, an instant message window popped up on my display. It was my best friend, Ake. Ake? Okay, if you want to split hairs, he was my only friend, not counting Mrs. Gilmore. Top of the morning, amigo. Hola, compadre. What are you up to? Just surfing the turf. Surfing the turf. Ah, bad lingo. You? Got the basement online. Come and hang out before school, fool. Sweet, I'll be there in a sec. I close my... I need to make this go away. I closed the IM window and checked the time. I still had about a half an hour until class started. I grinned and tapped the small door icon at the edge of my display and selected Ake's chat room from my list of favorites. Chapter 3. Do I want to get into Chapter 3? I do have Father's Day. Give me a second, let me find out how far Chapter 3 goes. Oh, it doesn't look like it's too big. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Alright. The system verified that I was on the chat room's access list and allowed me to enter. My view of the classroom shrank from the limits of my peripheral vision to a small thumbnail window in the lower right of my display, allowing me to monitor what was in front of my avatar. The rest of the field of my vision was now filled with the interior of Ake's chat room. My avatar appeared just inside the entrance, a door at the top of a carpeted staircase. The door didn't lead anywhere. It didn't even open. This was because the basement and its contents didn't exist as a part of the Oasis. Chat rooms were standalone simulations, temporarily virtual spaces the avatars could access from anywhere in the Oasis. My avatar wasn't actually in the chat room. It only appeared that way. Wade 3, Parzival, was still sitting in my world history classroom with his eyes closed. Logging into a chat room was a little like being in 2 places at once. Ake had named his chat room the basement. He had programmed it to look like a large suburban rec room circa the late 1980s. An old movie and comic book posters covered the wood-paneled walls. A vintage RCA television stood in the center of the room, hooked up to a Betamax VCR, a Laserdisc player, and several vintage video game consoles. Bookshelves lined the far wall. Bookshelves lined the far wall, filled with role-playing game supplements and back issues of Dragon magazine. Hell to the yeah! Sorry, got excited about some role-playing geekness there. Hosting a chat room this large wasn't cheap, but Ake could afford it. He made quite a bit of dough competing in televised PvP arena games. So he's a Twitch user, only successful. Good for him. Twitch 2045. After school and on the weekends, Ake was one of the highest ranked combatants in the Oasis in both the deathmatch and capture the flag leagues. He was even more famous than Artemis and one of his friends. I love people like this. All I can say right now in my head is, you're a wizard, Harry. Over the past few years, the basement had become a highly exclusive hangout for elite gunters. Ake granted access only to people he deemed worthy, so being invited to hang out in the basement was a big honor, especially for a third-level nobody like me. As I descended the staircase, I saw a few dozen other gunters milling around, with avatars that varied wildly in appearance. There were humans, cyborgs, demons, dark elves, Vulcans, and vampires. Most of them were gathered around the row of old arcade games against the wall. A few others stood by the ancient stereo, currently blasting The Wild Boys by Duran Duran. Browsing through Ake's giant rack of vintage cassette tapes, Ake himself was sprawled on one of the chat room's 3 couches, which were arrayed in the U shape in front of the TV. Ake's avatar was a tall, broad-shouldered Caucasian male with dark hair and brown eyes. I'd asked him once if he looked anything like his avatar in real life, and he jokingly replied, "Yes, but in real life, I'm even more handsome." Me too. This is all an act. All an act. His distinctive Cheshire grin stretched from ear to ear. "Z!" he shouted. "What's up, amigo?" He stretched out his right hand and gave me 5 as I dropped onto the couch opposite him. Ake had started calling me Z shortly after I met him. He liked to give people single-letter nicknames. Ake pronounced his own avatar's name just like the letter H. Ake, H. Oh, Aech, H. Okay. What's up, Humperdinck? I'm not repeating these horrible 80 nicknames. Not happening. "What's up, Humperdinck?" I said. This was a game we played. I always called him by some random H name, like Harry, Hubert, Henry, or Hogan. I was making guesses at his first name, which he'd once confided into me, began with the letter H. I'd known H for a little over 3 years. He was also a student on Ludus, a senior at OPS 1172, which was on the opposite side of the planet from my school. We'd met one weekend in a public Gunter chat room and hit it off immediately because we shared all the same interests. Which is to say one interest, a total all-consuming obsession with Halliday and his Easter egg. A few minutes into our conversation, I knew H was the real deal. An elite Gunter with some serious mental kung fu. He had his 80s trivia down cold, and not just the canon stuff either. He was a true Halliday scholar, and he'd apparently seen the same qualities in me, because he'd given me his contact card and invited me to hang out in the basement whenever I'd like. He'd been my closest friend ever since. Over the years, a friendly rivalry had gradually developed between us. We did a lot of trash talking about which one of us would get his name up on the scoreboard first. We were consistently trying to outgeek each other with our knowledge of obscure Gunter trivia. Sometimes we even conducted our research together. This usually consisted of watching cheesy 80 movies and TV shows. Here in his chat room, played a lot